good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I just wanted to take a few minutes here to introduce the presenter team to you. This is your 3M presenter group today for the mining session. So we've got Steve Koch, who is a senior application engineer. Steve's been with 3M for 24 years, and he is currently the global technical resource for all things related to confined space and rescue, the mining industry, and the utility industry. And just has a wealth of knowledge on all of the key hazards and applications that our customers see in the mining industry. Jeff Taylor has been with 3M for 22 years in the personal safety division as well. Previously, he's managed a number of territories throughout all over the US. And he's worked in business development, program management, and strategic roles, and currently now is our core safety specialist for Southern Colorado and New Mexico, so certainly mining country. Our third presenter is Chris Knudsen, and Chris is based in Arizona. He's been with 3M for more than 35 years and spent the bulk of that in our mining, oil, and gas solutions division before moving over into a senior safety specialist role in Arizona and surrounding area. So certainly three fantastic experts in the mining realm. For those that have participated in these sessions in the past, I'm Dana Robinson. I have responsibility within the personal safety division at 3M for all of our industrial segments. So we've been working with the AD Safety Network team to deliver these sessions to you over the course of the year, and look forward to continuing to deliver these to you. So before we get started here, we'll take you through kind of a bit of an industry overview. I'll pass it off then to Steve, who will take you through some of the key applications and hazards in mining and the things that are keeping health and safety managers up at night. My colleague Jeff will go through some tips and tricks on how to really effectively sell into this complex industry. And then finally, Chris will handle the solution-based selling portion, and he'll get into more detail as to some key products to feature and some research and identifying questions that you and your teams may wish to ask. So just kind of a fun fact before we get started here. The 3 M's in 3M stand for Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. So mining has certainly always been very central to our business throughout the course of 3M's 100+ year existence. So certainly, we have strong roots in the mining sector, and some of our largest customers have always been in that realm. So hopefully today we'll be able to leave you with a few key takeaways. I know every time I hear Steve, Chris, and Jeff talk, I learn something new. So hopefully the same is the case for you. So starting off with a bit of an industry overview here. Our mining market, at 3M, we identify all of our markets by NAICS codes, so those North American Industry Classification System codes that all businesses have. So really, the key subsegments under that mining umbrella are coal, metal ore, non-metal, and then support services, your MRO type activities. So when we're talking mining today, that's very much what we're centered around. The way that we look at the mining industry, of course, by NAICS code, mining and oil and gas kind of fall into one single bucket. So we've done our best to kind of separate out all things mining wherever we can. And again, we'll focus on those 4 key subsegments for the purpose of today's presentation. So just wanted to highlight those of you that have participated in our most recent talk on the heavy manufacturing, metals, and transportation sector. We covered off primary metals and metal fab in that session, so we're not going to cover those today, even though some of the mining customers also have smelting operations. So anyways, we will circulate to you the previous resources in case you have an interest in also checking those out. So when we look at mining throughout North America, we feel that mining has an addressable market, mining and oil and gas combined, of about $390 million. So certainly a good chunk available to us in the PPE market. We're seeing, obviously, last year with everything going on with COVID, we saw a very steep decline in our mining market, but we're seeing it rebound nicely now as things start to get back to some semblance of normal, which is great. We expect to see pretty moderate growth this year and then much stronger growth next year and into the future. So certainly a great business to focus our efforts on, and one that we at 3M are certainly looking to identify as a key growth area. We see about 151 million workers, and you know, a little bit of a decline in employment growth, but certainly still a lot of opportunity there for PPE. And so when we're looking at our entitlement model, we're very much looking at kind of the full head to toe PPE offering that we can provide to these workers. And we find too in the mining sector that, you know, they have very specialized needs and tend not perhaps to be quite as cost sensitive as some of our other segments. So it's certainly a business that we can play well in and take share. Okay, so this is just a breakdown for you of kind of how the business rolls out. You know, we feel that overall mining, oil and gas, you know, about 14% certainly. And then we wanted to also provide you with an overview of what we see in terms of trends by portfolio. So as you can see, SCBA, reusable respiratory, powered and supplied air, like those complex respiratory systems are really where we win in mining. So we certainly, that's where we play. And that's what you would want to lead with on these mining calls. So we offered this session internally to our team last week. And I think it was really helpful to have that conversation with our team when we're looking kind of at our segment methodology to selling. We look at the overall industry, the key applications, the hazards that those applications create, and then some possible solutions. So it's really easy to go in and try and boil the ocean and solve every problem, but really our segment selling methodology is, let's focus on what the greatest problem is and really understand that, and the rest will follow. And as I always say to our team, you know, we expect our 3M safety specialists to be product experts, but within their given territories, they have a whole gamut of different customers in a variety of different segments. So we can't expect them to also be experts in every single segment. So it's important that, you know, we provide some additional guidance and selling tips here to help you win in these highly specialized industrial segments. So with that, I will pass it off to my colleague Steve to go through some of the applications and hazards in mining.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Dana. And I apologize. I shut off all my notifications with the exception of my phone. So that was my phone that you heard bellowing in the background. Again, my name is Steve Kosh, and I'm an application engineer. But I have to clarify that I am not an engineer. I don't have an engineering degree. 3M has kind of termed some of us that have specialists, or we're specialists in a certain category or segment as part of the application engineering team. But we're more than anything, we're specialists. And I've been doing that since about 2013. I have 24 years of experience with 3M, but most of that's been on the safety and health. I moved from a safety and health manager role to the application engineering or a specialist role in 2013, and I jumped into the mining, oil and gas. I spent quite a bit of time in the oil sands up in Canada, surface mining in the West Coast, and of course drilling oil in North Dakota, Texas, and that as well. So that's kind of my beginnings in the mining, oil and gas, and I continue to support that role. The other thing that I want to point out too is that the role of the application engineer in 3M is to really work with the safety and health managers, supervisors, and the actual workers to try to find the best solutions for their needs. We are not salespeople. We don't get paid a commission to go out and move product at all. We're there to help you and help our customers come up with solutions for oil and gas. And so we'll go ahead and move to the next slide, and we'll start digging into the applications for oil and gas. So we're going to start off here, and this is focused on the citations basically given by MSHA for mining. And as you'll see in the next couple slides, and as Dana mentioned too, we kind of break that up into like surface, the facility, and underground. The other thing that you'll notice as I move through the slide deck is that there are a lot of crossovers into what we refer as other segments, including construction and HMT, as Dana mentioned, when it came to the smelting side. So there's a lot of crossover, so sometimes you get more application engineering support depending upon the situation. But one of the unique things, if any of you have been through these presentations in the past, we typically have pointed out and not listed like the top 7, we'll list wherever PPE pops up, wherever 3M solutions pop into citations, that's what we'll see here. And in reality, when you look at surface, facility, and underground, you don't see a lot of citations for PPE related issues or health and safety issues for the workers, with the exception of underground, where you see fall protection comes in as number 3. Now, this doesn't say or doesn't mean that safety and health of the workers is important and that people aren't dying in facilities or dying as a result of having worked in mines over the past years or over 20 some years or their life. It's just that the focus of MSHA has really been with these other programs and issues. We'll jump to the next slide. And in the last year, in 2020, MSHA has indicated that they had visited underground mines 4 times. So every underground mine out there, they visited 4 times. Now, the other interesting thing, though, is that many of the visits over 2020 were done virtually. And so, again, if you remember back to the previous slide, where were the citations? There was a lot of citations related to record keeping. And then their focus, MSHA's focus over the last few years has been trying to reduce the number of overall deaths for power haulage equipment. There's been 21% of the fatalities that happen in mines due to power haulage equipment. And if we again look back historically, that percentage was more up to about 50%. So the overall number of people dying in work-related incidents and diseases as a result of diseases is around 30 per year. The numbers are going down from haulage, but going up in other areas and categories. So again, part of my role is to dig into those and understand that to help better understand how we can help support the mining group in, either personal protective equipment or other 3M solutions. There are approximately 300,000 workers working in the mining field. 230,000 of those are working in the 11,500 metal or non-metal mines, and about 64,000 workers are in about around 1,000 coal mines. Now, again, fortunately in the U.S., only about 30 people. And again, I say fortunately, I hate to say that any death is good. It's not. But when you look at the global numbers, almost 15,000 workers die in mines every year. So the MSHA and our facilities, all of the owned facilities or run facilities in the United States, and even when we look into Canada, have done a really good job in reducing the overall fatalities. Now, the downside, though, is that since 1968, there's been 76,000 workers that have died as a result of black lung. So even though we don't see it in the annual numbers of the workers that are dying, it's the retirees. It's a lot of the people that have that historic work in the mines that where the fatality, where 1 in 14 any of workers that have over 25 years of experience are dying as a result of black lung. So respiratory will always play a critical role. And even though we're at the next few slides, we'll kind of break down the segment a little bit and cover some of the other personal protective equipment could be necessary. You're going to see a couple repeated things. You're going to see respiratory, and you're going to see communication. Communication to help with the dust from power haulage, and of course visibility as well. But then also it has a result of of the black lungs. We need to make sure that we're protecting the workers on a respiratory side. Next slide. All right, so we've broken up the process into a couple different areas, and as you can see from this slide, it's gonna be on the exploration and construction of the facilities. I can't, since I'm an EMT, I have trouble with I want to always say extrication, extraction of the material, internal transportation, maintenance, processing, and storage and transport. And we're going to break those down a little bit and kind of look at some of the hazards. And again, you're going to see some consistency across all of those. So next slide. So some of the common hazards and risks in mining, and again, depending upon, it doesn't make a difference on all of those. You're going to see consistency, which includes noise. Noise, you're using conveyors, large equipment. You're breaking up material. You're using explosives. Noise is going to be an issue for all workers within a mining facility. We've talked about the need for respiratory protection. So particulates, gases, and vapors all are present within mines, and we need to protect those workers. There are a number of confined spaces and ideal atmospheres, typically when we're talking about the service and maintenance of equipment, but there are certain circumstances where people can be exposed to those. Dust and particulates, flying materials and debris, low visibility. These are darker environments or operations that are running 24/7, and so people are working in low visibility on a number of times during the course of work. Struck by injuries, low work clearances, and then of course work at heights. There's oftentimes many people, so there's a lot of opportunity and needs for safety health managers to protect their workers from a vast number of injuries and hazards that 3M provides solutions for. Next slide. On the mine planning and development, so on the exploration and construction of the site, again, there's a little bit of crossover when we talk about the maintenance, or I mean on the construction side. However, construction, and Chris will talk about this later, is happening all the time. There are, on a lot of these mine sites, they are always building new facilities or new locations. So you're talking about the same, you're talking to the same site management when it comes to some of the construction on existing sites. So we're not thinking about construction of new mining sites. It's the construction that's going on, the ongoing construction taking place on existing sites. But there is also the need to go out and explore different locations, especially for precious metals and other materials. And so there is the need, and there's concern for noise, because again, we're drilling, we're moving equipment. There's a lot of people in a small area on the construction locations, and that people need to be able to communicate, and clear communication has to be done, plus protect them from the noise. There are a number of hazards. There is dust flying up every time people are moving equipment around a site, and so we're protecting the workers from particulates. Plus, but then there's also other hazards such as welding and grinding and painting that takes in special needs for certain types of respiratory protection. Again, a little bit of confined space, but dust, visibility, struck by, and of course, there will be working at heights, especially on the construction side of it. So again, you're going to see some repetitive things going through each one of these sections. Next slide. On the extraction portion of the mining, and on this one we'll quickly cover open pit. A lot of moving equipment, and there's a lot of noise from the explosions that are taking place to the truck traffic. It's generating a ton of noise, and we need to protect workers from those noise hazards, but we have to help with the clear communication between workers so people know where everyone's at. So again, visibility and the communication goes hands in hands as well. Again, moving equipment is generating dust and particulates, and we got to protect those workers from respiratory hazards. A lot of the equipment that is used in the movement and extraction of the mining material, a lot of those equipment have incorporated HEPA filtration systems built into it, but your general pickup trucks may not, or the workers working around the site may not have that or don't have that capabilities. And so we're still protecting a lot of workers, even though a larger equipment may have some built-in filtration systems in it. There will be, struck by object risks as well as working at heights. And that little circle picture in the far left-hand corner, we'll talk about that a little bit more when it comes to the maintenance side. But even on the extraction portion, sometimes equipment breaks down and we've got to bring the workers and repair teams to the equipment, and we can't get the equipment to the maintenance shops. Next slide. On the underground extraction, again, we're having a little bit of visibility becomes a little bit larger of an issue because we're in darker locations. We don't have a lot of good natural airflow here, so we're relying on ventilation systems installed in it. There's also a lot in a lot of the mines, they're putting a sealant, as it were, on the sidewalls and that to kind of keep the dust down. And MSHA's indicated that the mines have done a lot better job of that over the last year or 2 years. But again, we don't get away from our respiratory hazards. We don't get away from visibilities and noise as well. And then we do run into situations where electricity becomes an issue as well. And so we've got a lot of hazards within underground mines in a very, and again, I don't want to say it's confined, but we have a small area where a lot of equipment are using, and it's not the same as an open pit type of mine, but some of the similar hazards exist. Next slide. When it comes to internal transport, I've kind of mentioned this a little bit already. We're generating dust. We're using conveyor belt systems. We're generating noise. We're generating dust. There's a lot of stuff going around. We see all the little ants or the little people on the drawings here on that, especially on the top side. A lot of people moving around. Visibility is an issue. Communication. There's a chance for being struck by equipment as well. And then people are working at heights, especially now. Next slide. When we start moving into the actual processing of the equipment. So when we're talking crushing and grinding, now we have people moving and working up on equipment. And so we have the potential of people at heights where fall protection becomes an issue now. Additionally, again, we are moving material, and that generates noise from conveyor belt systems, and just the sound of the material passing from conveyor to conveyor or being loaded into the system is generating tons of noise. It generates a lot of dust, and then now we're beginning to also expose workers to other type of respiratory hazards as well. Next slide. And so that's where we get into the mineral separation. Oftentimes, especially in our precious metals, we are starting to deal with chemicals or add chemicals to the processing of the material or the mineral separation. And now no longer are we worried and concerned about just dust. We are talking about specific chemical hazards. And so we have to understand the chemicals that they're using to determine the right type of respiratory protection. We may have to start thinking about getting away from reusable respirators into more sophisticated respiratory protection, PAPRs, even supplied air systems, depending upon where we are within that mineral separation and the chemicals they're using. We still don't get away from our hazards associated with visibility or noise, but we definitely now, again, we're having workers at heights, and on the maintenance side, we're beginning to do some confined space applications as well. Next slide. On our outbound storage and transportation, we're moving into rail cars, we're moving into ships, we're moving a lot of material, large equipment, and again, communication becomes an issue as well. Again, we don't get away. I can't say it enough. I'm beginning to sound like a broken record when we talk about the need for hearing protection as well as communication. All of that is going to be critical for workers to be able to make sure that they're safe. And again, the emphasis of MSHA, as I mentioned before, was really about movement and transportation, reduce the number of injuries by people getting hit with haulage equipment, even though on this side, where a lot of it's done by conveyor systems and automatic loading. However, we still don't get away with the use of moving equipment within the facility. Next slide. I think this might be one of my last slides. is on the maintenance side. One of my exciting times of this, and great opportunities, especially when it comes to fall protection. These are very, very huge pieces of equipment. I'm sure many of you have seen them before. This equipment is not even transported. When they buy a new piece of equipment, it's not transported to the location, it's built on site. And so there's people and workers that on the new builds of this equipment that needs to be protected from falls, as well as the general maintenance of the equipment that is in. This equipment's on site for an extended period of time. There's often again, it's built on site, maintained on site, and it's overhauled on site. And so all of these workers, again, fall protection and work at heights is going to be critical in protecting these workers. We're also getting into welding and grinding. We've got dirt and debris that's on that equipment is dirty. So not only are they welding on metal, but what else are they welding? Is there other chemicals associated that are on the equipment, grease, and that we have to really dig into to understand how do we protect those workers. And then we don't get away from all the other things. We have a better opportunity to fall protection for tools here as well, because again, workers are working on these up above other workers doing maintenance on the vehicles, and we got to protect the being struck by falling objects or falling tools. And I think that's my last slide. Dana, move to the next one.
It is. Thank you,
So
Steve.
yep. So again, just a quick roundup there is that there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of similarities, but understand the processing and understand the different hazards will help you figure out better options for our customers.
Great. Thanks so much, Stephen. A special thank you for calling in while on vacation. Really appreciate that. It's dedication. Okay, perfect. Well, we will continue to monitor chat, so feel free to post any technical questions you have throughout. And with that, I will pass it off to Jeff to go over some tips and tricks on how to win in mining.
Thank you, Dana. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Taylor, and greetings from Denver, Colorado. Just a little background about myself. I am, as Dana mentioned previously, I am the core safety rep in Denver, Southern Colorado, and New Mexico, and this is my 22nd year with the 3M Personal Safety Division. During my time at 3M, I've had the privilege to work at a wide variety of surface and underground mines across 7 Western states. Mining is a challenging market, but it's always educational and can be fun once you've done the work to generate strong relationships with those that work to protect the safety of the mining community. So let's just get started on how to win in mining. The sales tips that I will be discussing are time-tested, proven success drivers in this challenging vertical market. My suggestion, and it's just a suggestion, is that you follow these closely during your engagements with mining customers. First tip, be visible and present on site regularly. Mining sites are often described as small towns, and anyone who's lived in a small town knows they are very personal, relationship heavy. That is why being frequent and consistent in your visits is critical to relationship building in mining. Safety and procurement leads have a long list of sales representatives that have knocked on their door and then very rarely returned. One of the reasons this happens is because mines tend to be remote and they're in areas where potential customers may be in short supply. Another reason is that mining is very cyclical. They go through boom times and bad times, and that fact may lead to large employment swings. Thus, most salespeople tend to also be cyclical, and many will only call on the mine during the boom time. You must service in good and bad times to be a critical partner. Mine safety managers don't require a specific number of visits that you must make to achieve the trust threshold, but it has been in my experience that they are counting. During my first few visits to a large coal mine in Montana, I met with a team of individuals who were very professional, but not really friendly. The trip to this site was always a real white knuckler for me because I made the trip during early morning, dark hours. And in the winter, I had road issues with snow or ice. And during the rest of the year, the road seemed to be a magnet for all kinds of animal crossings. After a couple years and a regular series of visits, the staff really started taking interest in my travel challenges And it seemed to me that they had even started an over-under betting pool on how many trips I would make before I damaged my vehicle. So it was at that point I finally knew I'd won them over and I was an honorary part of the team. So if you remain diligent and visible on these mining sites, eventually you will achieve a trusted status that provides additional account intimacy and opportunity access. Also, remember, during your visits, you do represent your company and you're trying to sell, but you should take every opportunity provided to focus on learning about each of the mining applications, their critical challenges, and the overall safety goals. Once you intimately understand those needs is when you become a value asset to that safety team. Next slide, please. We just mentioned in the previous slide that trust is critical to your success in mining. Well, that theme continues with this tip: demos win business. They may not say it, but the term prove it may be an attitude you will face when you introduce alternative solutions to existing PPE. PPE is personal protective equipment, and miners really take it very personal. In some cases, this is equipment that for years they have trusted with their lives. And in their minds, changing that product may potentially lead to an unnecessary serious injury or fatality. A prime example of this has been miners' reaction to the replacing of a discontinued 3M Airstream PAPR system. That product has been a proven respiratory protection provider for 40 years, and its discontinuation has been met with disapproval from a large number of miners who have trusted its performance. Product replacement required multiple PAPR product demos with both staff and MSHA representatives being present. And that led to gaining commitment for the change. So be very prepared to provide demo equipment, evaluation forms, and then be prepared to do the formal performance recap when you look to change PPE. Additionally, offering what's a product inspection may be a good way to gain access to older powered and supplied air respirator, communication, and SCBA systems. And that will then allow you to provide suggestions on upgrades and eliminate performance gaps in the current PPE systems they use. In other words, just inspections will lead to orders. Next slide, please. MSHA training assistance. Okay, so this one I want you to be careful with. It's really important in the relation development process, but you need to be cautious here. Every year, mine sites must conduct annual refresher training. Each miner must participate in 8 hours of training, and depending on the size of mine employment, this training can become very daunting for the mine's safety staff. Typically, PPE and application awareness training for hearing, respiratory, and fall protection will be greatly valued and will result in enhanced relationships, but be careful to fully understand the time commitment that may be associated with you volunteering this service before you agree to participate. As an example, the 3M team has conducted training for one very large coal mine in Wyoming. This required us to train 1,300 employees in hearing protection. Each class was for a maximum of 30 employees, and it took 45 sessions over 3 weeks to complete the training. The bottom line here is that it is good that you've been asked to assist with the training. It means the site trusts and values you as a safety professional, but only accept the offer if the scope of the training is something that you can personally manage and if the sales opportunity is worthy of such service. Next slide, please. Okay, this one's rely on your experts. Remember, mining has its own set of safety regulations outside OSHA, and these MSHA regulations may be slightly different. Due to these slight changes, it's important to work with individuals that understand the MSHA guidelines and then have the experience with their enforcement. During the past year, 3M PSD has organized a mining team which meets monthly to discuss customers, distributors, regulation focus, and strategic activity. This 3M mining team members have over 100+ years of experience and should be considered your first stop when you need consultation on mining company activities, applications, regulations, and possible opportunities. Myself and the next presenter, Chris Knutson, are part of this mining team. I will put my contact information in the chat so you have a point of contact who can assist you in engaging this team and knowledge base. Now I'll turn things over to Chris Knutson, and he'll be walking you through solution-based selling. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. Hi, all. Chris Knutson here, coming to you from Phoenix, Arizona. Been my home for the last 35 years with the 3M company, and mining kind of just found me. Being here in the West, especially the Intermountain West, mining just became one of those things that was hugely critical as far as targets for me, as far as growing business and sales. And then the mining industry just I kind of followed along with it. Been calling on the mines, participated in the Mining Oil and Gas Solutions division with 3M from its inception to its eventual being dissolved, and everything in between. Managed a lot of big mining accounts, one in particular, Freeport-McMoRan, which is now headquartered here in Phoenix. And I managed them internationally, so I've been to their Grasberg mine on New Guinea and in Indonesia, visited Central America or South America in their Sierra Verde operations, and then Central Africa when they still operated Tinki Fugami. So I've been surface mine, underground mines, metal, non-metal, been involved with it for a long time. And what Dana asked me to do today is kind of just walk you through a little bit of some things she set up here that are really kind of nice in regard to kind of segmenting mining. As my two guys said before, mines are like little cities, little towns, which means they can be managed and have little departments all over the place that you can call on. So if you want to go to the next slide for me there, Dana. Next slide. Thank you. So she kind of segmented these out, kind of like what Steve was talking about, exploration and construction. Mine sites are constantly doing this. They're constantly growing. They're constantly moving things underground with coal. They're moving panels. Above ground, they're moving where the mine goes to follow all the geology and the ore. So exploration and construction are very key to what's happening in mining. And with that, you've got all kinds of hazards, noise, dust. You've got vehicles moving around. Human beings were not meant to be underground, so anything underground is dangerous. So if you look at the way this is set up here on the slide, research questions, things like asking your mining customer if they're doing any CapEx projects, which is redundant really because they're always doing something on the mine site and building something, whether it's a crusher, whether they're repairing conveyor belts, or heavy equipment, whatever it may be, they're doing it. So the solutions that we have over here on the right, for instance, the DBI Sala here in the US, MSHA requires that when miners are working at height that they're tied off 100%. And the NanoLock twin leg is key to a lot of the things they do because it's lightweight. They love the product and it can be used in all these types of projects. Also, Dana's done a good job with this in identifying questions here, which I believe this whole slide deck at the end of this is kind of a leave behind for you guys to look at. And it can be really helpful, not only the product suggestions on the right, but also the identifying questions here that kind of can get you deeper into these, whether it's an industrial hygienist, whether it's a superintendent, somebody that you're asking these questions of, that you can kind of dig deeper into what they're doing. As Dana said, you know, you guys are managing a lot of different segments, mining just being one of them. So the way this is set up in this slide deck is really kind of nice as a guide. Next slide, please, Dana. Thank you. Extraction. So extraction is going to be different from the different mines and, of course, the different minerals. I've called on surface mines, I've called on underground mines, and each of those has its own unique way of the extraction of the ore. And usually in an above ground mine or a surface mine, you're looking at where they're going to blast, and then they're going to use shovels to take the overburden off and either pile it into these leach piles where they leach the ore and get the mineral out that they want, or underground where you're going to be either long walling with a long wall machine with a shear, or you're going to be using a continuous miner underground. Either way, The extraction of ore is also another area where you're going to have a lot of different hazards. You're going to have respiratory hazards. You're going to have visibility requirements. If you think about the size of the equipment, let's say on a surface mine, when you're doing extraction, you got these haul trucks running around, Caterpillar, LeBaire, and they have a 450-ton payload, let alone the weight of the vehicle. So being seen and also to be able to see all this equipment is critical when it comes to high visibility. Also in extraction, when you blast and you're starting to move dirt, you have a lot of dust. And silica, especially silica here in the US, which OSHA just changed the regulation, and MSHA is now looking at changing the regulation to pull the exposure level down from where it's been since 1971. And so when you're talking about things like that, you're talking about solutions that we have, like our portable powered air purifiers, hard hats, hearing protection for all the service mobile equipment and all the moving around. Everything's loud and big. So when you're doing something like that, the suggestions on the right here are great solutions to those problems. Next slide, please. Processing. Again, here, processing can be different from ore to ore. You've got a lot of chemicals used when it comes to gold, when it comes to copper, and getting it down to its purest form. So you're talking about things like in copper, you have the solvent extraction electrowinning process. In gold, you're going to be using cyanide. There's going to be arsenic. You're going to have lead, cadmium. You're going to have all of these things in different areas where they're going to be extracting metals from the rock. So in this case, you've got, again, lots of different pain points to choose from noise, confined space, working at heights, respiratory hazards. All of these things are present when it comes to the processing of most ore. Confined spaces, dropped objects, workers that have to work at height. All these things are present in this part of the process that they use to extract metals from the ore. You've got all of these solutions that we have over on the right here. Again, I love the way Dana set this thing up. These are all great solutions, from all of our fall protection for tools, TR600 HIK for dust and chemicals, hard hat, the new confined space adjustable davit, and all these kinds of solutions are, of course, going to be something that would be important to the mine. Next slide, please. Transport. When it comes to transport, it's really going to depend on the mine and the ore. When you're talking about getting things from underground, a lot of that stuff is conveyor belts and tipples that are going to get it out of the ground. And then, of course, in a surface mine, transport is going to start from where you blast off overburden and put it on a truck all the way to when it's crushed. And then it's conveyed, and then it's also going to be put into, whether it's a liquid or going to be smelted, really depending on the ore that you're working with. And again, those are going to present all kinds of different hazards, respiratory hazards, communication challenges, because sometimes you've got overhead cranes and guys are trying to work on an overhead crane, and they're using they're in the tank house. And they're removing copper from cells. They have to talk to each other. So you've got a lot of things going on in the transport as well in the mining industry. And again, solutions like Peltor, solutions like our Gargle Gear 500, all these things, again, are going to be, you're going to have a wide variety of solutions for this customer. And hopefully, as a consultant, they're just going to love you for it. Next slide, please, Dana. Last, but of course not least, is maintenance. So as Steve said, most of this equipment is built on site because of how big it is. So when you're talking about front-end loaders, crawlers, haul trucks, graders and blades, anything like that that's moving around on the mine site is like, it's like big aircraft. And with aircraft, you have what they call D-checks. Well, all of this equipment requires warranty work and or maintenance work. For instance, in hard rock, you're talking about truck beds, just truck beds and shovels alone, that they have 6, 7, 8 substitute truck beds and dippers that are substituted onto equipment so that one can be taken off and maintained and the other one can start to be used. In the mine fab shop, there could be anywhere between 25 to 100 welders that do nothing but weld and put on wear metal all day on dippers, truck beds, blades, or anything else like that. So you've got a lot of things going on there where our equipment can be extremely useful. As Dana's got over here on the right, we've got our Speedglass 9100 MP, which is Freeport-McMoran. I've got 250 welders using this equipment with our portable powered air purifier, our AdFlow, self-contained breathing apparatus, and also the ScapePack AT being used when guys have to go down into to maintain cells and work inside tank houses where they've got a lot of sulfuric acid. And then again, all the other solutions we have, from eyewear to our fall protection, all of these things are going to be present in the maintenance side of things. So thinking about miners and thinking about the mine site, again, it's just like a little city where all these things are going on all at once. You getting to know who the superintendents are, who the industrial hygiene people are, safety committees, being involved and being in front of them, and trying to understand as much as you can the process by which ore is extracted and how the mining is done there with your customer is really going to help you get closer to them and providing solutions, key solutions for them. And as Jeff said, with remote locations, a lot of times when they do choose a solution, they keep it, especially if they have a trusted consultant that's talking to them about it. So listening and doing something like this, like we're doing here with the slide presentation, is just the tip of the iceberg to you getting to know what those processes are in those customers. I think is that the last slide? That's it. Thank you, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Chris. And again, we've got a few extra minutes here, so feel free to type any questions you have in and we can field those. We've pulled together some resources for you. As we mentioned, the AD Safety Network team will circulate this deck. As well, we've put together a quick reference selling guide that aligns very well with Chris's portion of the solution-based selling. So our hope is it'll take you through each of the various process stages and some key questions to ask, as well as some proposed solutions that might be relevant there. We've also provided you with some powered and supplied air quick links. As Jeff mentioned, the Airstream discontinuation, certainly that was a popular solution for this segment. However, we did seek special approval from MSHA to replace this with our TR800 product. So we've provided some associated materials there. Also, of course, on the maintenance side, those fixed and horizontal systems are big. Our FlexiGuard systems are a really, really popular product. You can move them from place to place, and they're very heavily utilized on some of that heavy equipment maintenance. So we've provided the brochure there. As well, some more information on our confined space solutions, and again, Steve is an expert there. So if you've got any follow-up questions, he's your guy. The other thing I wanted to kind of point out here, we have a new fall protection configurator app, which uses AI to superimpose various products on your site. So if you haven't already downloaded that, it's really a cool product, and one that you can use directly on a mine site or any site for that matter to kind of track what that system would look like in real life. So I have a colleague that does these demos regularly, and he did a customer demo on his front lawn and dropped this huge system on his front lawn using AI. So yeah, so check that out as well. We've provided you with some other associated welding materials. So have a peek there. As we mentioned, the AD Safety Network has asked us to partner with them on this kind of training, and you know, we've really appreciated having that opportunity to work with you. This is our third session, so we've already done heavy manufacturing, metals, and transportation. So we've provided you with the quick reference selling guide as well as the session recording if you missed it. Same with construction. And then we've got sessions scheduled for pharmaceutical manufacturing as well as food and bev this year, and possibly an oil and gas turnaround session early in next year. But Brandon and the team have been great at working with us. So if there are any other segments that you have large opportunities for that you would like us to provide kind of a similar session, we'd be more than happy to do that. So please just let myself or Brandon and the AD Safety Network team know, and we'll be able to put that together as part of our program next year. But we love any feedback that you have. We want to make sure that these sessions are valuable to you and that you're taking away some good pieces of information from them. So I don't see any questions in the chat. If anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute, and the team will be happy to field those.
Hey everyone, so unfortunately you cannot unmute yourselves, but you can type your questions into the chat box and we'll get to them. Before we wrap it up and while people are writing in their questions, is there anything, Dana, you and your team wanted the audience to keep top of mind or take away from today? Anything that they should take away as a key point from today's presentation?
Well, I mean, I think we've kept it pretty high level today, Samantha, and I know Chris and Jeff in particular gave some great selling tips. So I don't think maybe any one particular piece of information, just that, you know, if you have any follow-up questions, we're available to you as resources. If there's anything, you know, we can assist. You know, Chris and Jeff and Steve, of course, all have tremendous expertise in mining and are more than happy to help you. I see that both Chris and Jeff have posted their contact details there, and we will circulate those in the follow-up email as well.
Excellent. So it doesn't look like we have any questions, so I'll leave it to you guys to wrap it up for today. Thanks so much for your presentation.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on your Friday. Hopefully you will ease into the weekend nicely after this. And again, do please feel free to propose any other topics you'd like to see from us. We're happy to provide that to you. But have a great weekend, and do let us know if there's anything else that you need from us. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dana.
Thank you, everyone.